Stephen, always good to see you. I mean, I don't mean to diminish the importance of Russia and everything in that, in the geopolitical sphere over there. But, if they were as tough and hardcore as they advertised themselves to be, I mean, they really made a play of it in their military ads, then Ukraine would be part of Russia and it wouldn't be a thing right now. What I'm most concerned about is China accelerating I was just reading a thing from Wall Street Journal. They're accelerating their nuclear buildup because they claim that they're worried about the United States when really they're the aggressor here. I'm concerned that we're all going to be like people in Shanghai, trapped on our balconies and having to jump to our deaths because our fridges are empty. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you're right. When you look at the very, very stark proof of what happens in a society when you have an overly controlling and intrusive government who has no value for human dignity whatsoever. I mean, you see that there is no respect for human institutions of family, religion, free association, any of those things that are the pillars of freedom, not just in America, but anywhere in the world. And we've learned under COVID that there's a lot of the world that's ready to wilt and allow those institutions to bend or break. But nowhere are they more broken and more gone than when you see happening in Shanghai and in broader China right now. They have a zero COVID policy, but what it really is the least prepared population for dealing with this virus at this point. It proves that the shutdown policies actually leave you open to more destruction and disruption. And I mean, if people haven't seen it, they have these high rises where they have drones that are actually telling people to stop singing on their patios because they yearn for some social interaction. People are jumping to their deaths because they're facing starvation. But perhaps the most brutal thing that I would encourage people not to go watch, although it'll be hard for them not to, is you see a government that is taking people's pets and beating them to death in the streets. Now, there's two things going on here. A government that values nothing but control, but also something maybe even scarier. We were told that this came from a wet market. If dogs and other house pets are carrying whatever is spreading in Shanghai right now, we're dealing with something very different than what we have been told and the Chinese government has admitted.
See, and we're talking with our friend Stephen Yates, not to make light of this, but John Wick was really a movie about a dog. And right. I'm thinking, if that had happened in the United States, imagine, because that's my John Wick switch. I see anything elderly abuse, child abuse, animal abuse, makes me turn into John Wick. And yeah. I just, that's why they probably took everybody's guns in Shanghai. Otherwise, people would be up there with, their 308s and they'd be looking down at at the big whites beating these dogs and, it'd be duck hunt. Not to make light of it. But I have to because it's such a horrific issue. The fact that so many people, what really astounds me, and then I want to talk about this Wall Street Journal piece, what really astounds me is that, Shanghai is no small city by any means. these are millions of people.
Largest in the world.
The fact that this kind of control, you can control that many people. And they send out these like Jack Reacher looking things, these guys in the hazmat suits out to control everyone. Apparently, like if you even go out of your apartment building, Stephen, just to go across the street and get some bread, you're arrested. You could be beaten in the street along with your dog.
Yeah, well, the Australians tried to pull that off, and they did a scary job of it for a while. But there is no one like the Chinese when it comes to imposing total control. And this is a really interesting test because China's going to face some serious disruption from all of this. This is a city of 26 million people. Trucks are not bringing product from ports into the production facilities. Trucks are not supplying grocery stores and other kinds of important supply chain issues inside of China. That also means the manufacturing platform of the world that we have not weaned ourselves off of the addiction to is going to be disrupted. It also means that the scarlet letter I of inflation is not going away anytime soon, and that China itself is going to face a lot of pain, more so than Americans are from this. We'll get our own dose of it when it spreads. Both the inflation and whatever this virulent thing is that's spreading around in Shanghai. But the economic, political, and social disruption even the Chinese people at some point have to say no mas. That's happened a few times. But when you start disrupting the major cities of China, you can bet this is not one city. This is happening in other places too. And Xi Jinping might not necessarily be emperor for life like he was suiting up for.
Ooh, that's a very good point. Talking with our friend Stephen Yates, this and the because the COVID zero approach is one of the. I mean, that's apparently what their strategy. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And this ridiculous thinking is also applicable to their foreign policy, because now Wall Street Journal says, Beijing believes the U.S. could turn to nuclear weapons in a war, and they're accelerating as a result. Their nuclear buildup over rising fears of U.S. conflict. It's always the bully that accuses the person that they're trying to bully of being the aggressor, and true in this case also. Are they actually able to? Because their economy appears to be not, in the best of. I mean, they got a lot of stuff that they're dealing with. Are they actually going to be able to accomplish this?
Well, they don't actually have a rigorous congressional debate about appropriations. And so when their leadership says the money is going away from poor, starving people in the countryside and it's going to build more nuclear weapons, guess who wins? And so it's one of the most troubling trends out there. It's scary that the fastest growing nuclear arsenal on the planet is in the People's Republic of China. And we probably don't have a good read on numbers.
No.
We have, by estimates, about 4 times the number of weapons. But guess what? We're deterring a lot of other places, and we have been relatively reasonable stakeholders in this kind of a regime. China, however, is a rule breaker, not a rule maker. And so we don't have that kind of assurance with what they're doing. We also have zero transparency and accountability. If they were willing to unleash a virus on the world, why would they not be willing to threaten all kinds of other kinds of weapons if they so chose? And the worst part, just if anyone isn't scared enough, a desperate and crumbling regime is still very dangerous to us. It's not just if the Chinese would overtake us that they're a problem. A weak regime is very risky for us with the world's most dangerous weapons in their hands.
It recalls how World War II, at least in the Pacific theater, really kicked off with Japan. One last quick, kind of more of an observation. I think we talked about this maybe a while before, talking to our friend Stephen Yates. Do we have a good intel network even in China? Because I remember reading how apparently our spies kept getting killed. Do we even have, eyes on the ground to the extent that we are even able to get just enough information to maybe, I don't know, either prepare or just make smart decisions? I mean, what is the state of that over there? I can't even imagine. I just can't imagine having a healthy intelligence network in China.
Well, a few decades ago, I was a missionary, and then after that, I worked in the intelligence community. And in the late 80s, early 90s, the United States worked very, very hard to expand its ability to detect what was going on inside of China. You would think in the decades that followed, we would have a better read on things. My hunch is that we don't actually have very good indicators and warnings on a lot of different things. In the explosion of globalization, people just assumed that global media was going to be able to disclose information more accurately and more rapidly than intelligence services were going to be able to find. And the Chinese government does a better job of concealing than a lot of other governments do. And so I have grave doubts. We spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on our ability to detect, and yet somehow we miss the biggest, most important issues that are out there time after time after time. I don't question the patriotism and determination of a lot of people who work hard on that, but you gotta face them cold, hard facts when it comes to the results. And, the Chinese that's a difficult language. Not everyone can speak it. This ugly mug can speak it some of the time. But we need lots and lots of people able to do a lot better at that if we're going to have any hope of really understanding and influencing China.
That's a really great point. That's a very good point, especially not just with what you're talking about in terms of actually being able to ingratiate yourself with the community that you're providing intel on, but also the point of the globalized media. I mean, really, what does it actually help? Cause more division, and it seems to add to the chaos more so than solve it. Stephen Yates at YatesComms on Twitter. Always so good to talk with you, my friend. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Dana. Take care.